Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am Cloud Therapist. This is the second episode of Cloud to Culture. Oh, actually, hang on, that's wrong. Okay, I'm usually much better at this. Hang on.
Sorry, I'm just going to
Okay. Code to culture. Code to culture. Code to culture. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am Cloud Therapist. This is the second episode of Code to Culture, a six-part series taking a deep dive into platform engineering. There's a bit here for everybody, really. Whether you're a developer, platform engineer, DevOps engineer, SRE, whatever, everybody here is really welcome. And I'm sure you will all benefit from this series. So episode 2 is called From DevOps to Platform Engineering, the enterprise journey. If you're wondering where episode 1 is, well, you can probably see that on the Cloud Native FM YouTube channel, which is hosted by Saim Safdar. My channel and Cloud Native FM are sharing and alternating between the 6 episodes in this series. If you're watching this much, much later, well, there's probably a playlist here for you, so you can probably go and check that out and have a look at all of the episodes. Now, here's somebody who is appearing in all of the episodes, all 6 episodes of the series. You see, not even I or Saim are privileged enough to be appearing in all of the 6 episodes of our own series. But here is somebody who is. So let's actually introduce Cortney Nickerson, who's going to be my co-host for this episode. Cortney is the head of Community at Nirmata for the Kyverno Project. Cortney, how are you doing?
Oh, great. I'm special. I get to be in 6 episodes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You see, we're not allowed to do that. It's our own series, but we're not allowed to do that. So Cortney, welcome.
You made the rules.
Yeah, we did. Yes, absolutely. You're right. So welcome to the channel. Welcome to this episode. So this is episode 2, Cortney. What are you kind of looking forward to in the episode?
Well, I'm very much looking forward to learning about how platform journeys in enterprise companies actually start. I think there's not enough talk around when people have the realization that they need to start a platform journey, when they have the realization that it's actually a platform journey that they're on. Because it's every time I talk to people, it's like, oh, we started this journey. We didn't always even realize we were doing it. And other people are far more intentional. So really looking forward to hearing different experiences about that, as well as some real world battle stories about not just the planning and the preparation, but actually the implementation and the challenges of getting people to buy into what it is that you're trying to get them to do. So, and not just the folks that are being served, but the companies and businesses that you're working for as well, I think is probably a factor that lots of people get stuck there, right? Trying to find buy-in from the powers that be. So very excited to hear about all those things and ask some questions.
Fantastic. Yeah. So definitely, I think the voice of the customer, the voice of the enterprise is really important. I think it's probably one of the areas that's not actually covered as much as I'd like to see anyway. So it's really great to actually be able to do that. So talking of enterprises, we have a great lineup of the two guests for you. So NatWest is in the house. We have, first of all, Chris, who is the joint product owner for Platform as a Product at NatWest, and also Joel, who's the principal engineer in the cloud platforms and the lead engineer in the Platform as a Product team at NatWest as well. Guys, welcome to this episode. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks. Really pleased to be here tonight. Thanks for the invite.
Fantastic. Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Did you know that 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed yet to this channel? Come on, guys, we can do better, surely. So please hit subscribe and the notification bell. It costs nothing, but it really helps me to keep making more videos for you. All right, back to the therapy session. Excellent. Okay, so we have a lot to go through, guys. So we're going to get cracking on the first section of that. So just kind of looking at the sort of the early days and sort of looking, when you guys adopted sort of or started looking at sort of platform engineering seriously. Chris, if I may ask you first, when did you guys kind of realize that platform engineering was a thing and you were actually you guys kind of really needed to do it?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, we've been on our cloud journey now since about 2015, and I joined the company again back in 2023. So we've been at that a number of years. We've been at there 8 years. We had deployed a lot of different compute and different resources out in different CSPs, like most large enterprises, especially financial services. We've got everything. We've got AWS, we've got GCP, we've got Azure, Oracle Financials, because everyone uses the Oracle Financials in their organization. We've got lots of the third-party things as well that you've got to support, right? So we've been on that journey. We had a lot of successful projects out there, business units going off that we'd enabled, giving them shared services, built up a lot of capabilities over the years. But we realized that things were slowing down. We took a look at these patterns, these golden paths that we created over those years, and more people had started to put all their requirements in there. You think of the early days of cloud, right? It was really easy. It was exciting. Everyone was able to just go off and do stuff, and it took like 5 minutes, right? As you start to kind of come up with standards and patterns and approaches to go through things, right, it takes a little bit longer. And we were getting feedback from our internal customers that it was taking longer than it used to take them, right? So we really went into the community and actually started watching an awful lot of things. Hi, Courtney. Watching an awful lot of Courtney videos and people we all know in the community who were all talking about this kind of platform as a product and platform engineering and platform maturity model. We're like, let's lean in a little bit more here. Let's find out more and see how that can help us just improve what we're doing. And it came at the same time as someone new coming into the organization at the top, setting us really a strategy target of doing things 10 times faster, 4 times more efficiently, and really simplifying things, right? You announced us as NatWest. A lot of people might know one of our brands, RBS, which was the kind of global brand, right? We're not that organization anymore. So a lot of the things that we used to do as that big world domineering sort of organization, way back then, it's not where we are today. And, he came in and, that really reflects in what we do now. We've kind of changed away and we're UK focused rather than being world focused. So with that comes a lot of change and a lot of focus, right? And so some of these things and systems that we had in place in the past have all had to change. And we really just went into the community and started understanding what are others doing in this space? How can we, start to be involved in the CNCF community and learn what other people are doing in this space and then bring that back and apply that to what we're doing.
Right, cool. And Joel, kind of what were you seeing in terms of sort of your organization as I think Chris kind of alluded to some of them, but what are kind of some specific pain points that you guys are seeing? And and how did that how did those sort of trigger really and sort of this move to platform engineering?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess from an engineer's perspective, as Chris alluded to, I was around at the start of when sort of NatWest stood up their cloud capability, and sort of I was kind of lead engineer in rolling out the IaaS platform, and we automated lots of stuff, and it was really cool. And everyone went out into public cloud, and it just kind of the usage exploded, And we had lots and lots of automation, and we do still have lots of automation. But I think what sort of started to become apparent is you could start to see that a lot of application teams, particularly in public cloud, were really having to solve the same challenges over and over again. And a lot of the central teams, like, public cloud teams who are supporting those teams, were just getting asked the same questions over and over again by application teams. So it starts to become apparent that, there's some efficiencies to be had there, and really there's probably a better way of doing those kinds of things. So I think at that point, we started to realize we need to look at how can we kind of take away some of those overheads that some of those application teams are having to resolve sort of over and over again. I think for some people it's probably quite cool getting to play with the technology, stand up networks in AWS and all that kind of stuff, or GCP. But actually, for an application team who really just want to start writing code, deploy their application, that's a lot of kind of overhead and cognitive load for them to have to kind of deal with. So I think at that point, it started to become apparent to us, probably as usage of public cloud in particular has started to sort of explode, that we really needed to do something to make things a bit more efficient.
Cool. Courtney, I was just going to ask you actually, because this might be just slightly relevant for you as well. What was kind of your sort of defining moment? What was kind of the first one went, oh, platform engineering, what's that?
My first moment of, oh, platform engineering, what's that, was talking to a group of people who were trying to figure out if DevOps and platform were the same. And I had no idea what they meant when they were talking about platform. For me, it was very much, I had only been involved with a lot of DevOps teams and the whole security side of getting DevOps more involved in being security minded. And suddenly people were talking about, well, is this DevOps or is this platform? And my biggest question was, what in the world are you talking about? Doesn't everybody have some sort of platform of tools that they're using? That was my initial interpretation. And then came to the realization that there were other people who that was very much what they believed innately, and other folks who hadn't considered that they had even a very slim platform. And that piqued my interest immensely, to realize the different phases and stages that people who were in very similar roles were actually the different viewpoints that they actually had looking at the exact same topic. And it became fascinating for me. But also, I'd like to ask Chris and Joel, before jumping onto the platform train, were you looking at any other options or things, or was this something that it was a no-brainer as soon as you wrapped your head around what people were talking about?
Yeah, so the team I joined when I first came back to the bank was called the Architecture and Patterns team. And, I've talked about this before. We had over 130 patterns that had been built up over time with all these different requirements, all these steps you have to go through to do something in a safe way. Really successful. Lots of people following the same pattern, our application developers following that pattern, getting their AWS account, standing up EKS, deploying their microservices, really successfully. And again, like you said, working with security to bake some of those things in, right? And we took a look at all of those in our different platform teams. We've got a lot of platform teams that look after different platforms. So we looked at these different patterns and patterns. We saw AI coming along, and we realized that we couldn't maintain creating new patterns for every new type of interaction. We quickly realized by watching what the community was saying that we needed to really lean in more to the self-service world rather than allowing people to do self-manage and self-engineer. Give them lots of tools, lots of the instruction sets, but it was like giving them a box of Lego, right? They have to go off and build it themselves. And we saw that everyone was moving towards this. Well, actually, we'll build the Death Star for you and you can use it, right? Rather than have to spend weeks building it yourself. So we assessed all those patterns and what our teams were doing. And we identified that we had a lot of teams that have been self-managed, self-engineer, a lot of teams that might not have those skills and that high cognitive load, of knowing Terraform, AWS, Kubernetes, lots of different things, right? And then how to do app deployment, learn about Argo, for example, right? Or Flux. Let's not get into the Argo and Flux debate, right? But they had to learn a lot more. And we then start saying, but where's the self-service part to this? How can we make that faster for them? We had some of those customers that are really good at orchestrating things, but didn't have all those kind of technical teams and skills. But they were brilliant at going ordering like, 2 servers, a load balancer, firewall rules. They came up with a pattern and they repeatedly used that a lot.
Right.
And then saying to us, how could you make that really quick for us? So yeah, we took all that information, right, and we sifted through it, and we decided there's kind of three classifications. We need to do better across each one of those three. We started up some working groups. We had some conversations in the typical corporate style. We got some people together to collaborate on that. We got some initial requirements come out of that. We fed in what we were learning from the community and eventually just formed out that approach that we're following today.
Right. And okay, so just looking at kind of that early sort of planning, Chris, if I can just stay with you for a sec. So looking at sort of planning and prep for that, was there any kind of involvement from sort of external partners? Did you kind of talk to vendors? Did you kind of get that sort of advisory from
right.
partners and so on?
Yeah, back in 2023, there weren't as many platforms of products in the market space, or in the say even in the CNCF landscape. It just wasn't there, right? You pretty much at that time you had Humanitech, Canoe didn't exist back then. You had Syntasso, Kratix. I talk a lot about that because that's who we work with. We went out to Gartner, as any corporate will do, right? You look at what Gartner's saying is going to happen in this space. And we went out and had a look at who was in the marketplace, what were they up to. We quickly formed an opinion that we were going to work in the open source space. We just stood up an OSPO, right? An open source program office. So we were changing our culture where we would prefer open source first. We'd try and take something off the CNCF landscape or in the open source community. We'd take that as far as we can before we then need to go commercial. That's very different, right, to how we might have done things in the past, where you would have a very complicated RFI, RFP process. You'd send out lots of questions to people. You'd select a tool based on that, and then you would try and use it. We flipped it on its head. We want to try and do something innovative, start really agile and iterative, and move forward. So as we were looking, we quickly realized the people that were in the marketplace, we actually knew quite a few of them. Colin and Abby and Paula that are at Syntasso, we knew them from our pivotal days. We've been talking to them since 2015 when Colin wrote the original white paper on platforms of product. Our leader, Ted, had been involved in all of that, when they were helping put that platform into our organization. So we had 10 years of talking to these guys already about this kind of the concepts and things. It made a lot of sense for us to just kind of lean in and continue working with them on those conversations that we'd already had. And that's when we really started getting introduced, into the community through Abby Bangser, saying, hey, have you been along to the platform engineering tag app delivery working group? Come along to that and start talking to some other people. Come along to KubeCon, come and meet some other people. So we really lent into the CNCF model, and it's very different, right, to like an AWS conference when you go along and it's all community-led, community people there, community initiatives, and you've got people sharing information. We joined Finos as well, which is the kind of the other Linux Foundation group, I guess, under their umbrella, right? That's meant for financial services. So the OSPO joined that, and we could talk to other banks about what they were doing. So yeah, there was an awful lot of leaning in and talking to like different people about, well, what are you doing in this space, and sharing ideas and concepts, and helping that to evolve rather than just going to a single vendor. I think that's what's different and what's kind of interesting for me, and it's very refreshing, right, when we're going out and it's not just a vendor's view, but it's actually a community view, and it's a view that's been bubbled up through lots of shared experience. And we're trying to basically tap into that.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of that approach seems to be the standard kind of wave. A lot of these sort of new movements seems to be coming in. Joel, just to touch on, just kind of sticking to kind of the groups and teams and things, where does kind of your sort of platform engineering teams fit in? Is there kind of just a sort of brief outline of your sort of org chart? Is there kind of are they part of like a wider competency center or a cloud center of excellence? Or are they kind of side by side with that or reporting into that? Or give us a quick view of that, because that will be, I think, really interesting to understand that.
Yeah, sure. So within NatWest, essentially, the platform engineering function, if you like, has really been stood up as a new capability. So I think, and to be fair, I wasn't there when the team was first formed. Chris was there before me. I joined about 6 months after. But I think very intentionally, we realized that there was a massive change that was needed, and it wasn't going to be enough to try and sort of build a platform engineering type function alongside other teams. So I think it was intentionally stood up as a new capability within the bank. It's actually called, the team's actually called Platform as a Product, and essentially it sits within the cloud platforms area. But yeah, I think, there's a recognition that platform engineering really is a change in the way of doing things. It's a sort of transformation enabler that's being sort of driven across the bank. It affects a lot of people and a lot of teams. And I think, we're still, even though we're 2 years in now, it still feels like we're still in the fairly early days of the transformation. So the whole kind of where we'll sort of fit into the org and how teams will be structured eventually, I think it still remains to be seen. There's a lot of discussion going on at the moment about what that's going to look like. But yeah, I think it's sort of kind of very intentionally been stood up as a new capability, so separate to the kind of rest of the teams that are there. And I think, yeah, longer term, we'll see how the reorganization pans out. But it really is involving teams from all the different, disciplines across the infrastructure organization. So I imagine that eventually the infrastructure org chart will sort of reflect that in some way.
Sure. And in terms of just sort of communicating the kind of the vision to to both engineers, sort of the developers, and also the stakeholders, how did this sort of platform engineering concept come in, Joel? What was the kind of some of the key things that you guys had to point out and say, this kind of this seems to be a movement, this is where we're going?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, certainly initially, platform engineering, they don't get it. You really need to explain the benefits. I think there's a lot of teams out there, who have been doing things the way they're doing, and they don't necessarily see the efficiencies. So again, as part of the stand-up of the new capability within the bank, I mean, Chris has been an advocate since day one, doing internal presentations, going off to KubeCon, doing presentations, talking about the good work that we've been doing within the bank, but really driving awareness both externally and internally. We've been bringing the other sort of traditional platform teams, if you like, along with us on the journey. So one of the things we've been doing since the stand-up of the capability within the bank is we've been running quarterly boot camps where we get, 20 or 30 engineers who come on the boot camp, and we do a kind of a week-long training session on it's sort of partly on some of the tools we're using, but also on sort of platform engineering concepts, and really try and get them to understand the mindset and get excited about the journey as well. So we've been doing that for nearly 2 years now. I think we've trained over 150 engineers on the boot camp. We've brought in a hackathon, so they get a couple of days.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do a couple of days at the end of the boot camp now where they get to play with the technologies and try and sort of see what they can create. And we've had some really fantastic ideas come out of that, which we've taken forward from that as well. So yeah, I think it's needed a lot of talking about and, advocating for a kind of change in the way we're doing things across the board, both internally and externally. But I think people are getting really excited about it now. And, I think the tipping point's been reached where people are really understanding the benefits, both inside and outside of our department now.
Right. And Chris, just briefly on leadership, how's kind of the leadership reacting to this? Do they get it? Do they understand it, as Joel said, or not, as the case may be?
Yeah, it depends which level you start your initiative in your organization, right? I mean, we're a massive organization with over 60,000 people, right? So you think of all the divisions that we've got and all the different teams inside there. As Joel said, we sit inside Cloud Platforms, which is part of the CTO organization, which is part of Hosting Solutions. Our sponsor, our exec sponsor, Ted Newman, he's the senior that gets in our area. And between him and then his boss and then the overall boss, they're sponsoring the work that we are doing. I think that's really important. If you're set up at too low a level and you don't have that exec sponsorship and that understanding, then you're really limited into what you can achieve. So Ted set us some audacious goals. He has set it since 2023. Every single program increment, every quarter, we'll have kind of 3 goals for his area that he'll set, we're always one of those.
Mm.
And so he's over that time, he's been sponsoring it. He's been doubling down on communicating the reasons why we're doing this. I spent a lot of time and effort on that. Spending time with the actual product owners on sessions with the product owners talking about it,
Right.
with the engineering communities, setting up was it 16 to 2s they call them, and I think some people do 15 to 1. He does kind of 16. I think I'm sure 16 to 2. But different types of meetings for different groups, so they can come along and ask him direct questions about it as well. I mean, he's really involved in kind of the strategy and what we're trying to do, and driving that every single quarter. It's a 5-year journey, right? It's a transformation thing. It's not just about a piece of technology. It's about how do we take everyone in the department on this journey. And as Joe said, taking people every quarter into the boot camps, taking them through the hackathons, restructuring some teams in the department. We created an enablement function recently because we couldn't do things fast enough to help others. So to help all his other platform teams, we stood up an enablement team in the team topologies model, right? So that they can help other teams do things and help those guys that have been on the training course actually then start contributing to the platform and to solving some of the problems. So yeah, bit by bit, good executive sponsorship, and just keep pushing things forward and say, no, I'm happy to accept these things. I get there may be some short-term decisions that we need to make, but here's the long-term vision, and this is what we're trying to achieve. And I think that really helps, right? When you've got that leadership. I had a conversation at KubeCon Salt Lake City with a smaller organization where they didn't really have that, and it was an initiative within their own area that their manager just spun up, but the people above didn't really understand it.
Right.
And I think it's really important that you've got that sponsorship, that communication, the communication, right? Double down, triple, quadruple the amount of communication you're doing about what you're doing and why, and just keep doing it as often as you can.
Keep plugging at it. Excellent. Okay. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. So let's move on to kind of just a little bit of the sort of implementation and some of the challenges. So Joel, just going to you in terms of kind of any major challenges that you guys had sort of along the way, and probably maybe even still having them at the moment in terms of implementing platform engineering. What were kind of some of the sort of harder decisions that you've kind of had to make along the way in terms of tools and processes and people and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. There's been lots of those.
A bit wide. I know I'm setting you up here. I know that. But
yeah, I mean, so I think one of the biggest challenges with platform engineering is, as an organization, we've got lots of little bits of automation, but most of those bits of automation are fronted by a ClickOps form somewhere or another. Yeah. So someone can fill in a form, click a button, and they'll get one of the things they need to get to the end result they're trying to get to. And everyone's got their own individual processes and ways of doing things, and potentially APIs, and some haven't even got APIs. And what we're trying to do is kind of break down those barriers, glue all those things together, and give some, like the customer, the kind of end self-service product. So we're really having to deal with lots and lots of different teams, traditional ways of doing things. We're having to change mindsets, help people redevelop their own products so that we can interface with them and interact with them, via APIs so that we can orchestrate them. And a lot of things have got sort of, red tape and change processes and things built into those processes as well. So it's trying to unpick all those, all of that stuff just takes time. And we're having to solve lots and lots of those really hard challenges to be able to actually deliver these kind of end products to the customers. And yeah, I mean, there's probably every time we sort of go down the rabbit hole of looking at, right, we're just going to, build this little piece of automation over here. Maybe something as simple as standing up. One example is an AWS account. That sounds simple. It's taken us probably 12 months plus, because it's not just an AWS account, it's all the governance and stuff that goes with it, all the other moving parts of having network, being able to get a subnet assigned to that account. Then, you might need Terraform workspaces, controls wrapped around it. So actually that very one simple thing is a lot of complexity that needs to be sort of dealt with, unraveled, and then sort of engineered together to actually deliver to customer. So yeah, I think that's probably for me some of the biggest challenge really is just, we uncover more and more of these things as we go through the journey, and we have to deal with each of these hard challenges as
Sure.
they come up.
Right. Courtney, just to cut to you for a minute, how have you kind of encountered sort of from the communities that you talk, have you kind of encountered similar sort of challenges as well? What's kind of your take on it?
Yeah, I oftentimes ask people, where are you in your platform journey? And then kind of measure
That's a
when
good question.
I follow it with, so are most of the problems that you have technical, cultural, or human?
Yeah.
And the number of people that say, well, they're mostly, and then it's a pause and it's because they have so many problems with all of those things. So usually they pick one, and oftentimes it's people, it's the human or cultural problem.
Mm.
It ends up outweighing the technical problem because you have to change the actual cultural situation first, and then the technical problems become much more easy to solve. Is always a fascinating conversation to have with people. But also, and I'd like to ask both Joel and Chris, when you're in those situations, how do you know what to prioritize? Because so many people that I talk to, when they're looking at this and their own situation, oftentimes struggle with that, with just knowing what to prioritize first to then move forward and get to the next step.
I'm going to be greedy and I'll give you two answers, and Joe can talk another one as well. I'd be remiss as one of the leaders in the CNCF's platform community group if I didn't mention the platform's white paper, the platform maturity model, and there's also now a self-assessment tool that we've been working on that's out there in beta that we're wanting. I'll share the links. That we're wanting some feedback on. These resources have been kind of created to try and help people on that journey, right? Try and assess where you are and then figure out the things that you should look at because you can't look at everything and you do need to prioritize, right? That was your question. So when I think about when I joined the bank, I didn't know about any of that stuff. I'd been at the number one fintech in the world for 5 years working on a modern banking platform and standing that up.
Mm.
And when I came to the bank, this was a revelation to me. And I'm like, wow, we could have done things differently if I actually knew about this. So it was a complete revelation. And I took it and I assessed where our platforms, where I thought they were after a few months of being in the bank and the direction and the things we'd been asked to do. And if I did that today, the answers are very different than when I did it back in 2023, right? Because we've changed some of those things. So really good tools to use on that journey and help with that prioritization. I think the other ones are the customer feedback. I spent a lot of time talking to customers. When we first started, as Joe mentioned, the AWS account vending, we have processes. We have, ServiceNow driven processes in the bank that are really successful for people to go and get an AWS account.
Mm.
But what Joel was talking about is all these little steps that people have to also follow. It's not just about getting your AWS account. It's also sorting out your networking and your connectivity and all the security stuff and your Git repos and everything that's involved in that pattern, right? We got feedback from that, from our team going through it, from customers. And when we started having those conversations, we were able to kind of validate and say, yeah, we felt your pain. We understand. We've walked in your shoes. We're going to fix that. So that kind of then gave us that remit to go off and help them because we acknowledged there was a problem. We could empathize on that, and then we could prioritize that work and say, with the kind of whole overall goal of 10 times faster, 4 times more efficient, and simplifying things, if we tackle this problem, this big problem, it's going to make a big change to the organization. So a lot of what we've been working on has been prioritized like that, right? Let's find those big things that will make a big difference to people. And let's give them some fully managed services instead of them doing it themselves. So a big pivot towards that aspect. Joe can talk more about that side of things because I've talked a lot.
Such a valuable takeaway for people. However,
Mm.
is the reality to prioritize. Oftentimes, it's your customers who will prioritize for you. They will tell you what their biggest problem
Mm.
is. And I
Exactly.
think so often that actually gets overlooked. People don't, they listen, but they come with a preconceived notion of what they think the problem is. And so the concept of the biggest way to prioritize, or the best way is active listening, I think is a huge takeaway for folks who are struggling with that question of what to prioritize. What do you think, Joel?
Yeah, so well, my answer is actually going to be probably the thing that's going to get you to delivering even a small amount of value to customers quickest, because I feel like that's one of the other things that we've done as we've gone through the journey is that there's lots of big, tough challenges to solve, and we're going to solve them. But what can we do to deliver some value to a customer quickly and iterate on it? Because we're not going to be able to do it all in one go. And we've seen that, we've learned that with all of the products we've started with, our kind of MVP releases, our first iterations. It's a basic thing that will deliver a little bit of value to customers, and then we've sort of ramped it up, iterated, and sort of added more bits and pieces into it. So for me, I think that's probably the most important thing, is how do we get the value to customers fastest, really.
And
You,
have
you
you?
have you have to talk to those customers, right? I mean, look at our
Yeah,
call at lunchtime today with one of our
yeah.
customers, Joe,
You're like, that was what we were doing before this, listening to customers.
How did we do it
Also,
before?
do you take some of that, because basically what you're saying is very much the same jargon that you would give for a business case, an actual enterprise. They have customers, paying customers that or the bank is actually serving. That's the software that you're building. You're trying to provide that person value. Does that help you actually get buy-in from people who are further up the ladder so they understand what it is that you're doing in a more
Hmm.
basic context?
I'll try and tackle that one. Um, Yeah, so our sole purpose is to serve our customers, right? And I don't interact directly with the external customers. I don't build the applications for them. So our whole area is about doing things faster to support our teams that are doing that for our customers. And so we've got to lean in with those customers and understand what it is that our internal customers want to do for the customers, that kind of business objectives, and what that means for us in platforms and how we're going to deliver that faster. What challenges do they have? And we've got lots and lots of different teams at different capability levels. I mean, the complexity of the org, you take some of the leading edge stuff that's maybe our mobile application, and the teams that look after that, they've been on the AWS journey. They've got their own platform teams. They do a lot of good stuff there. They need less from us. They need us to improve some of the services, but they can really innovate already. There's other teams who have been maybe doing a lot in our data centers and have been using, some shrink wrap software for maybe the last 5 or 10 years that now need to modernize that and maybe move on to something else that runs in the cloud. Maybe it runs in Kubernetes. They won't have those skill sets, right? They don't want to learn those skill sets because they look after one application and they're not developing it. It's a COTS type model. So they really ask us to lean in and do some of that heavy lifting for them, make it easy for them to deploy the applications like they used to be able to do on, like, say, the IaaS platform. Now they want us to do that in AWS or Azure or GCP. And so we've got to do a lot of that. And we try to do it in a consistent way. There may be some features they need that we'll try and, instead of having a separate pattern now, we would just adjust the automation to support that. So we're managing everything in a very consistent approach. So yeah, it's recognizing those different customer kind of use bases and what tooling or what services they need to be successful and do things quickly for our customers, right? And picking which ones need to be the priority based on that business priority and objectives. Yeah. It's I think, as I said earlier on to my boss today, we're professional jugglers, right? We're really good at juggling these things, keeping the plate
Amongst
spinning
other
and all
things.
these.
Amongst other
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, Joel, just very briefly, just kind of sticking to this section on implementation and sort of teaming and so on. How's the kind of the dynamic between sort of DevOps guys and sort of platform engineering, that sort of coexistence, cohesion? What's kind of been any sort of issues with that, or has it kind of been relatively straightforward? Any tensions, any issues, defining, making that sort of definition between the two teams or groups?
I think there's definitely been some conversations about that over the last couple of years. I mean, I think the thing is they both really should complement each other. Like platform engineering is really an evolution from DevOps, because there were realizations that in a DevOps model, there were challenges that needed to be solved and efficiencies that could be had across the board, rather than trying to do everything or repeat everything across a number of teams. So really, I think in the beginning there was a bit of crossover between potentially people delivering sort of DevOps capabilities and platform engineering and which sat where. But I think as time's gone on, I think some of the DevOps teams have now started to realize that, what we're actually doing and delivering via platform engineering actually enables them. So it actually enables them to go faster, concentrate on actually enabling the developers and things via their CI/CD pipelines, and leaving the kind of platform engineering stuff to the platform teams so that we can kind of engineer it once for them, make it easy, repeatable, consumable, and they don't have to worry about sort of going off and doing that sort of stuff themselves. So yeah, I think it's definitely been a journey. And I think at first, you get a bit of pushback, I think, because again, like I say, people don't really understand initially what you're trying to do when you talk about platform engineering. I think it's probably becoming a bit more understood now, but maybe going back 18 months to 2 years, I think a lot of people didn't really understand what it was and what the concept of platform engineering was. And I think even some people maybe actually enjoyed doing a bit of the platform engineering, even though they're in a DevOps team. So there's probably a little bit of that involved as well. But yeah, I think we sort of got a good understanding now of what belongs in the DevOps space and what's sort of platform engineering within the organization. And I think we're working well together with the DevOps teams as well, and we're sort of helping enable developers together now, which is working really well, I think, and we're starting to speed up and see productivity increase because of it.
Do you have any? Have you had any defectors going from one group to the other? I really like this, platform engineering, and I'm going to go and do a bit more of that.
We certainly had people express their interest in it. That's for sure from other teams. So
expressing interest. Okay. Courtney, one question I was going to ask, and again, kind of I draw on your sort of experience from community and talking to others as well. I mean, I kind of tried to get my head around sort of platform engineering sort of last probably 2 or 3 years. Kind of start hearing more of the term, and as Chris was kind of saying, platform is a product, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. And then my sort of really sort of pushback on it a little bit was really around we're now kind of not necessarily dictating, but we're kind of setting a particular path, the golden path, or taking a particular path in terms of the tooling and so on. How, I look at developers kind of as more sort of artistes, if you like. They're kind of very much, they like their own tools and, where they go and get their sort of, libraries from and whatever. And now you're saying to them, sorry, you can't use C++ anymore. It's got to be Golang or Rust or something, because that's what we're dictating in this platform that we're setting up. How's kind of been the response on that? What's kind of your take on it?
I love your description of developers as artists. I think they look at
themselves a little bit. They are a little bit.
Many of them look at themselves the same way, and rightly so, right? Their personality comes out in their code, and they're creators and they're architects, and they're building very cool things. But at the same time, that you're always going to have devs being like, why can't I touch it? Why? Why? However, at least in my experience, as people are moving into an adoption phase of adopting Kubernetes, for example, there becomes a moment where devs go, I don't really know that I want to touch that. There are some devs that all of a sudden jump on board with infrastructure and they turn into a DevOps or an SRE because they become fascinated with the control of resources and security, and all of a sudden they can touch everything and they totally forget about coding anymore. But there are a lot of devs that all of a sudden it's, well, what's my role in this part actually? And we're always talking about silos between dev and ops, and I think there's a lot to be said about QA engineers as well as platform engineers being the bridge between those two worlds oftentimes, because there has to be some sort of process where developers know where their role actually finishes. And there's still a gray area a lot of times in packaging their application. Some teams have their devs do that and pass it on to somebody else to put it in production. Other teams, you give me your app and we'll do that for you.
Right.
Because also there's different knowledge levels. So everybody's platform looks different, just like everybody's workflow looks different. And not everything is always as continuous and integrated as people hope it would be. But many times it's because you have different personalities on your dev team, and some devs want to touch everything and they get really upset that they can't, and they inevitably become DevOps or SRE. Uh, because it's just an innate don't touch the red button. They're like, I want to touch that button, and they dive right in. And you see more and more devs at places like KubeCon, for example, trying to understand the infrastructure that they're now building for and working with. But there are other devs that are like, hey, everything shifts left. You've shifted enough things on top of me. My job is code. I don't want to know anything about that. And those are silos that have very much always existed. Oftentimes, devs don't want to talk to ops folks. Ops folks who don't really want to jump over to talk to devs. But I think the world of platform has very much become a place where you can kind of bridge the gap between those two worlds in a much more fluid way that makes a bit more sense for people to understand why. And also devs need to understand that you can build all the applications you want, but if they're not deployed, what's the point? Right? You built it, but the other people on the other side of that equation are just as important as you are.
Agreed.
So with platform engineering, there's not so much push left anymore. There's now things that are shared responsibilities across the board, and people become a lot more aware of the other people on the teams that they're on.
Right, right. Excellent. Okay, so let's just because we've got a little bit more time, just kind of touch on sort of measuring success, return on investment, and things like that. So obviously that's kind of, we can do all this kind of building stuff, which is quite cool. But we obviously need to have some kind of measurement and success or KPIs around that. So Chris, what's kind of been some of the obviously there's lots of sort of maybe frameworks out there. I think Dora and Monk, I think, is the other one that's kind of been mentioned a few times.
You had to ask
sorry, was that a sore point there? But what's kind of been some of the what's kind of been some of the metrics and things like that you guys use?
So I laugh because I was on a panel at one of the KubeCons, and I was called controversial by one of my colleagues.
Do tell.
On the panel that I said, I don't care about any of those metrics. That's not what's important to us at the moment, right? So I was
there, and I remember your co-panelist going.
Was
all the air sucked out of the room or something?
There was a lean in,
gasps in the audience.
And the funny thing is, I replaced myself at London with my boss on the same panel lineup. We did it in Salt Lake City, and then he took part in it in London, and he said exactly the same thing.
Same thing.
Called controversial, right? He said exactly the same answer as me, which is initially, those metrics weren't important to us, right? We were much more interested in the transformational effect, the number of teams that are involved in actually starting to write in this new model, the number of people that we've got trained up in this new model, far more important to us than some of the Dora metrics. Dora metrics are.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just interested in, could you see impact though straight away? Could you kind of see, as you guys were doing that, could you see that things were changing? And as Joel said earlier, kind of, people taking interest in this stuff?
Yeah, not initially. I think that, in the early phases, as Joel said, right, an awful lot of people not getting it, and us have to double down on the communication and really struggling. We could see the benefits, we could see the progress we were making, we could measure that, and we could explain that. But what we weren't seeing is other people leaning in and doing that. I would say in the last 2 quarters, it's almost went exponential. The number of people that are now have been trained are leaning in. We've done an awful lot of different changes in the organization to help with that, like those sessions I talked about with the product owners, right, who now prioritize this work and working in this model. So I would say in the last 2 PIs, we've seen a massive uptick in the number of people now contributing to the platform and actually starting in this model. It takes time. I think that's the thing that you have to acknowledge, right? That it'll take longer than you probably think because you're embedded in this new world. You've learnt about it. You can't expect people to be going at the same pace as you. It's going to take them a little bit of time to get up to speed. It's like that steam train, it takes a little bit of time to get up to the momentum. And when it's at momentum, then you really are going. So, I think it just, taper your enthusiasm, right? And just understand it's going to take time for that. Don't measure it from day one because that probably isn't your important thing. At that stage, your important metric is probably how many people we trained up. How many people are getting it? How many people are coming along to the centre of practice meetings? How many questions are we getting from people? Questions are brilliant because questions themselves can tell you you're doing something right or something wrong. The more questions you're getting, chances are the more good you're doing, right? Because they're asking questions about, but why are you doing that? But why? Because they're, as you said, developers are really interested and they want to understand, they want to know. And then when they've got those answers, chances are they're away trying to do something. And that it's at that point when you really start thinking about DORA and the metrics. It's seeing, oh, look how many commits there have been to this. Look how many PRs there have been on this piece of work. Because we've done a good job of educating people and getting them up to speed. So, yeah, I was controversial by saying, right, we don't care about those metrics. Joel can talk about some of the things we've been doing on customer feedback and some of the things that we're trying to now get, because we're at that stage where we need that feedback in a consistent way. And all those good things that Steve and others will talk about, like DORA and proper metrics frameworks. I keep forgetting the other one that Steve Fenton likes pushing. It'll come back to me.
That's how much you don't care.
No, I do care. Sorry, I do care. Come on, that's not fair. I do care.
Okay.
No, but I find this answer fascinating because also you were talking earlier about your whole move into this space was a community-oriented move, and a lot of what you're talking about what's important, what you're measuring right now, are very, very aligned with what communities measure, right? How involved are people? What's the adoption look like? How many contributions are they making? How much do they want to be part of this? What features are they saying that they need, right? These are very much community-oriented questions. So Joel, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you're actually measuring what's coming from your customer base, and keeping track of it more than anything, because I think that's also challenging. People give feedback in conversation, but then how do you take that and move it into something that's going to be useful for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've been, as Chris had mentioned, we've sort of been working with a lot of customers at the moment because we've got to the point where we've got our platform live. We've got, a couple of people using it already, and we've got lots of interest on people who want to use the products that we've got coming along the line as well. So we've actually been looking at, I guess one of the other things to mention here is it seems like as a team, we've got a fairly decent sized team, but it's never enough. So when it comes to trying to then find, I guess, the time to look at those kind of things like metrics and how we measure success and all those kind of nice things, we've actually lent into another program that runs within the bank. So we have a yearly program called the Enterprise Engineer Program, where as part of that, they essentially have to work on an assignment that runs throughout the year. I actually sit on the faculty for that. So we've kind of lent into that and leveraged one of the teams within the program to start looking at how they could actually build a framework for collating some of those metrics from our customers. That program is due to conclude in October, so we're very much looking forward to seeing the kind of end result of what they come up with. So that's going to be focused more around some of the customer metrics and surveys and things. But from our perspective, I mean, at the moment we're very much sort of interviewing customers, having sort of feedback sessions with them, and then looking to build the requirements that they're feeding back to us into our roadmap for the next PIs. So we're currently about to go into PI planning for the kind of final quarter of the year. And as Chris mentioned, we've just had several conversations with customers and potential customers who are coming along. We're looking to align. We've got one customer in particular we've just been talking to today, as Chris mentioned, and they're looking to do a kind of mass migration of their existing infrastructure into AWS, and we're looking to align, our roadmaps to their roadmaps in terms of the features they're going to need to enable them to do that migration. And then we're looking to feed that back into our PI planning for Q4 and prioritize those features accordingly. So yeah, we're very much listening to our customers at the moment and starting to look at how we can kind of get those metrics as well. But like I mentioned, it's been, even though we're 2 years in, it still feels like we're very much early on in the journey in some respects. So it's definitely an evolving and iterating process there as well.
Yeah, so some way to go on that. So kind of incubation, championing, kind of that's kind of the initial focus for you guys. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. Looking at maybe sort of just reflecting a little bit and also looking forward to the future. So kind of looking back first, maybe Chris, just to you, what would you kind of do differently? What have you learned kind of since then? Kind of, if you go back in time, what would you be able to or want to change?
I think we learnt the team structure approach, from team topologies and the way that we're structured now. I think I talked about it at KubeCon London. It's very different from the way we started, and we probably went on our initial journey too long with an initial team and initial resources, and we've pivoted that over time. I think knowing what I know now, we would just start with the topology we've got. That would have helped us out on day one if we could do that, which would have meant a kind of stronger business case. You used the term that Cortney used earlier, right? We probably had to make a pitch for a lot more resources early doors, because we went through the traditional approach of let's do a POC, now let's move into an MVP. Now we've shown the value of that. Let's move on, and we were doing that iteratively, quarter by quarter. Cutting through all of that and just jumping straight to here's the benefits, here's what we could do, here's the example, might have been much quicker to get those results, right?
Oh.
But a lot harder work as well, and would have involved a lot more money. The approach that we took really was, there's no like additional headcount on this, right? It literally is taking people from different teams and putting them together in a feature team and cracking on with this. So yeah, I think in the rearview mirror we could have done that slightly differently to cut through it and get quicker. But then we've learned so much from doing that. We've educated so much. We've shared those experiences, right? There's an awful lot of depth there that I think, in hindsight, that's all been worthwhile, right? Because we can empathize with the customers, and we can definitely share that information. Whereas I think if we shortcut all of that, we maybe wouldn't have that, and it probably wouldn't have the same level of impact. So that's probably the biggest thing I've looked at recently, and really probably communicate more that we expect it to take 10 times longer initially than we probably expect, just because of all these things that you've got to do and that building up that momentum, right? But once you get to the momentum, that's when you start your measuring and you actually start showing those successes, right? I think we picked the right products to begin with. We picked some small ones and some big ones, and we've worked on those, and we've got different customers, as Joe says, using those. We've partnered with lots of different divisions, so I think all of those things get the tick. We've had some really, really good conversations in the last 2 weeks on kind of what we're going to do next. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward more than looking in the rear view mirror, right? I think we've done a good job in the past, and now it's looking forward about what's our 5-year roadmap, what are the things that we've got to do. As you know, as like any other organization, right? You get organizational challenges that take you in one direction. You go down a rabbit hole for a valid business reason, and that kind of takes you off the path that you originally thought you were going to go on. And when that's done, then you get back on the path. That's just life, right? You have to deal with those things. And even that, though, that might not be the way you kind of put it out in your ideal plan, you learn so much from those things. So I'm always about learning and how do we take those things that we learn and apply them to our products and what our customers consume. And I think that's the direction we're going to continue to take, is very iterative. At each PI, just keep doing that, work with the different product teams and the product owners to prioritize that work for the customers. And we'll eventually get there with what they need. You said it earlier, Courtney, right? You can't do everything on day one. You can't have everything just there and then. There has to be a plan for some of this. So yeah, it's just prioritizing that workload and making sure that we're helping our customers. I think we're doing a good job of that.
Fantastic. And Joel, just from you, kind of looking as Chris says, kind of looking to the future, just on two areas. So bit of advice from you, sort of for other enterprises, maybe either the beginning of the journey or sort of halfway through or whatever. In terms of kind of tools, practices, and frameworks, to kind of look at it from that perspective, what would be kind of some of your advice? And also then on the other side, the other aspect of it is kind of, balancing sort of adoption, speed of adoption, with teams and maintaining stability and so on. So tools first, and then maybe kind of, teams, and how would you balance that?
Yep, sure. I mean, I guess we probably touched on it already, but I mean, in terms of tools, I think what's key is, really lean into the communities, leverage the community, talk to people, understand what other people are doing. I think one of the challenges probably when you start to get into, Kubernetes and the platform engineering spaces, there is an absolute plethora of tools you could use. So you really need to understand, what the best fit is for your organization. So understand your requirements, maybe talk to other organizations of your size, which we've done as well. Go to events, get involved with community days, and find out what other people are doing. And then, that will really help you sort of understand the tools that are available and make the right choices for the tools that will suit your organization. So we've done that a number of times along our journey. And I think, we're 2 years in now, I think, and we're just trying to get even more involved with the community as we go, sort of thing. And I think it sort of pays dividends because it really helps you understand, I guess what's available out there, who's using what, where to look for certain things, and also to leverage the expertise of people that you sort of meet along the way to help guide you. So, yeah, that would be my recommendations in terms of tools, I guess. And the second question, sorry, remind me, was
just kind of team organization, stability of that, speed of adoption of of things within the teams versus maybe kind of doing more sort of governance or kind of the previous way you were doing things.
So I guess advice there is really, platform engineering is hard. There's no two ways about it. Platform engineering is hard. And I think you've got to start small, iterate, look at those small things you can do initially to provide a bit of value. Start with an MVP or finished viable platform, as they call it as well, believe, and iterate from there. I think we've done that over the last couple of years, and we've built momentum as we go. Obviously, I think again, as we've sort of mentioned a number of times in these calls, like this call so far, like communication is key. Shout about what you're doing, bring people on your journey. Go to conferences, talk about it at internal conferences, run boot camps, do hackathons, get people involved, and get people excited about it. I think we've definitely been on a journey where at the beginning there was definitely a lot of pushback and hesitation about platform engineering. But I think like as I sort of mentioned earlier as well now, I think we've really hit the tipping point where people are on board, they see the value of it, they're getting excited about it, they want to get involved with it. And yeah, I think that's only going to grow as we go forward as well.
Fantastic. So, Courtney, before we kind of close off, I think we're sort of at the top of the hour or so. Just final word from you. What's kind of your sort of final few words?
I think the more people, obviously, I am a community person, but my entire journey in the space and specifically around platform has been because of community. And I think a lot of times platform teams don't just treat their customers as customers, but they also treat them as community members. The more you can get them involved in what it is that you want, just like Joel was saying, and feel like they're part of an actual movement and part of a community, the faster you'll actually get to your adoption result, and probably the more stable your process will be. People really want to be part of something cool and they want to do things together. If they feel like they're working toward a common goal, a lot of times it accelerates just out of sheer intuition of people wanting to win. Everyone wants to win at the end of the day. It's far more fun and they really enjoy doing it together. Otherwise, team sports wouldn't be such a big thing in the world. I think a lot of platform teams, and I think one of the things that the two of you were talking about doing at NatWest is super important. Taking people along to conferences, and if you can't, providing internal conferences for them to share the same resources that you yourself are actually learning from. Because the more you can actually teach people about what it is that you're doing so that they're all using the same language, so that they understand the terminologies, so that they understand the benefits to them, the faster they will onboard into what it is that you're doing. And it sounds to me like Chris and Joel and their team at large very much put a big importance on doing that. So that's That's what I've seen and heard people have the biggest success with is treating their customers not just as customers, but as actual community members in their platform.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, I'm sure we can probably go on talking about this for ages, but probably some of us need to go and have some dinner or something, I guess, and tend to the kids and family. So so just thank you to our special guests, Chris and Joel. Great insights. Really appreciate you coming on to do this. It's really kind of brilliant to hear, a little bit more from the customer, from the enterprise. I think, as I said at the beginning, we're not really getting enough of that, and I think it's really cool to appreciate you guys coming. Also, I think we appreciate you, when you guys present at these events. I think that's really good, to kind of imparting that experience as well. That makes a lot of difference. Cortney, thank you for being co-host again. You'll be appearing on episode 3. As I said, I'm jealous because I won't be appearing in episode 3. That'll be insane. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on as well. That was really cool. Thank you guys for watching. It's been really good to go through this. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and same Safdar's Cloud Native FM channel as well. Do all the usual stuff. That really helps us out. So interact, comment, like, share, all that sort of stuff. That's really useful for us. And we will see you soon. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.